Okay, so let's have a look at example 6 here. We've been given the marks scored by a group of students in their March test. We can see immediately that these marks are not in ascending order, and that is important that we'll need to organise those. But first of all, part A, calculate the median and the interquartile range, so two things to work out there. Then we've got a little bit more information about extra homework classes before another test. And then we've got information about how the median and the interquartile range changed. So we'll come to that comparison in a moment, but the first thing to do here is to get these marks in order. So carefully working our way through this list, we want to make sure that we can mark them out in order. I think 37 is the lowest that we've got in here, and there's nothing else in the 30s, so I would cross that off, or maybe just put a dot next to it. And then we start to look into the 40s. We've got 41 and a 43 and a 47, and they're actually in order. So 41, 43, 47. Then I don't think there are any more 40s. We'll just dot them off so that we know that we've dealt with them. And we can start looking into the 50s, and we've got a 56, 58, 59 and another 58 there. So let's get that 56. Then two 58s, and then we've got a 59, and I think that's everything in the 50s. Let's just put a little dot next to them to show that we've dealt with them all, make sure we don't miss one out. And looks like 60s now, 61 and 66, and we're nearly there. We've just got whatever's in the 70s here, and we can see quite quickly, because we've dotted the ones that we've dealt with, that the ones that are still available here, 70 and 75. So a few things to mention here. First of all, I'm dotting them rather than crossing them out, because sometimes if you cross them out, you are then unable to read what they used to say, and it might be useful to read those numbers later, so I would just dot them. And also the other thing here is, of course, that the next one was 70, wasn't it, and not 75. So let's get that right, and then add the 75 at the end. And the other thing that I wanted to say, of course, which is important, is we must make sure we've got the same number of students essentially here. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in the initial list, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 in our ordered list. So we've got the list in order, which is important. Now, knowing that we've got 12 is really useful, because we want to find the median, and so that allows us to split our list into two equal sized parts, and since there's 12, that means there'll be 6 in each half. So the median is actually halfway between 58 and 58, and of course halfway between 58 and 58 is 58. So we're looking for the median, which is also known as quartile 2, but in this case the median equals 58. Now that's the first bit of part A, but we also want the interquartile range, so we need to go further. Let's look at the bottom half of this list. So we've already split it into a chunk of 6, and we can further split that. So the bottom half here being split into two equal sized parts, and this time we've got quartile 1 here, and I'm just going to write Q1 here. It's halfway between 43 and 47, so I think what would work for us is to say that quartile 1 is halfway between 47 and 43. Now, to find halfway between any two numbers, all we need to do is add them together and divide them by 2. Essentially, we're finding the mean average of these two numbers. So 43 and 47 is 90, and divide that by 2 gives us 45. So that's quartile 1. We also need to be considering quartile 3. So look at the top half of the list, 6 data items in there. Halfway would be between 61 and 66. So this is now quartile 3. Halfway between 61 and 66, we'll just add them together and divide them by 2. This one actually has a decimal part in it, 63.5. Just have to take our time and get that right. And then finally we can actually get that interquartile range that we were asked for earlier on. So the IQR, interquartile range, is equal to quartile 3, that's the upper quartile, minus quartile 1, just the difference between the two of them. 63.5 was quartile 3, and we're going to subtract quartile 1, which was 45, and then we have our interquartile range, in this case of 18.5. Now remember, that is 18.5 marks. That's a sense of the spread of the sort of middle section of the data here, the middle 50% of the data values here. And so then we can think about part B. We're told here that the teacher arranges extra homework classes for the students ahead of their next test in May, and then in May the median is 67 and the interquartile range is 14. Make 2 appropriate comments. Okay, so for part B, first of all, we're going to make a comment about the averages. Remember, the median is a type of average, and we've got both the medians, so we can say on average, and we want to just think what has actually happened. Well, on average, the marks have improved, haven't they? They've gone up. So we would say that the May marks are higher. And remember that we need to talk about the context of the question. So we need to talk about the fact these are test marks. May test marks are higher. And how is it that we know that? Well, it's because our median in May was 67, and 67 is of course greater than, so use the greater than symbol here, greater than our quartile, our median, sorry, for the initial set, which was 58. So it's all because we've compared those two. And then finally we want a second comment. Remember, 2 appropriate comments. The first was about the average. The second needs to be about the consistency. So we can talk about the May marks being more consistent. So being more consistent means they're more closely packed around the average. They're not so spread out. So in May, the students on this test were all scoring more consistently. We can say that here. Consistently is the word you want to use. More consistent. And how do we know that? Well, we know that because we can compare the interquartile ranges, and we knew that 14 here, which is what we were given, is a smaller number. It's less than the 18.5 that we calculated for the initial test, and so a smaller interquartile range means that the marks were more consistent.